So, today we're gonna have the first book summary without a video. This book summary is by the artofliving.com site, and the book we're gonna go through is The Apology by Plato, which, as a summary, and it is apparently a 10-minute read, but I'm gonna see, it's probably gonna take me way longer. But yeah, the link to the article is going to be down in the description, as always, and also in the show notes if you are on the podcast. So let's see. Apology summary by Plato. Apology is from 380, so 380, so the year. Three powerful speeches made by Socrates, a founder of Western philosophy, in his final defense of wisdom, excellence, and his life. By Socrates' student, Aristoteles' teacher, and eminent Greek philosopher, Plato. So let's see. There's actually content. First we're going to go ahead with apology review, then the summary, then the defense speech, the punishment speech, final words, and then the apology through quotes. And then the seventh point is which there was a faster and easier way, or wish there was a faster, easier way. Review. Apology is an idealized account of three speeches given by the 70-year-old Greek philosopher Socrates in his defense against charges of impiety and corruption, for which he was narrowly sentenced to death in 399 BC by a jury of 501 fellow Athenians. Note, apology is a transliteration of the Greek apologia, which means defense, not apology. The speeches are notoriously unapologetic, with Socrates proposing free meals for life as a more appropriate punishment than death for his crimes. Quote-unquote crimes, by the way. It has survived thousands of years for a few reasons. First, Socrates is a pretty big deal. From Christian and Islamic philosophy to Stoicism, to the Renaissance, to the Enlightenment, to the scientific method, and beyond. Very little modern Western thought can't trace lines of influence back to Socrates or one of his pupils, especially Plato and some other guys. Second, Socrates wrote nothing down. So despite Plato's airbrushing, it's one of the most faithful insights we have into who Socrates was and how he thought. Another pupil, Xenophon, also recorded the Apology. The two largely overlap, though changes in Plato's version cast Socrates in a slightly more heroic light. And finally, it's short, punchy, and beautifully written. Plato was an exceptional thinker, writer, and dramatist. Even without the pedigree of its protagonist, Apology is a masterwork worth preserving. My verdict: Apology is an enjoyable and thought-provoking read. It offers a fascinating insight into a man who shaped the modern world and the city-state and culture that shaped him in turn. And with most translations being A, free, and B, under 10,000 words, there are a few key philosophical texts more accessible. Not sure where to start, so here is my recommended translation. Note, as a Bath, apology is often bracketed with Plato's Euthyphro, Crito, Meno, and Phaedo. These short dialogues use Socrates' trial as a focus and Socrates as a character to explore some of Plato's philosophical ideas, but are much less clearly representative of Socrates' own words and views than Apology. And in the meantime, feel free to enjoy my apology summary below. Apology summary. Plato's Apology consists of three speeches made by Socrates during his trial. The defense speech, Socrates defends himself against the accusers. The punishment speech, Socrates proposes a counter-punishment to death. And the final words, Socrates makes his last statement to the court. So let's break them down. The defense speech. Socrates opens by apologizing for his poor speech-giving skills. He positions himself as a simple, honest man who talks in his own style and deals in facts, not pretty arguments. He then tells the jurors, he must make two defenses against his first accusers, who spread slanders and lies about Socrates before the trial, and second accusers, the plaintiffs in the trial and their specific charges against him. The first accusers are the hardest to deal with, since The first point, there are many of them and they have been active for a long time. The second, some Euros may have heard their slanders as impressionable children. The third, there are no specific people to name or argue against. And the fourth, Socrates only has a short time to try and neutralize their poison. But Socrates says he'll do his best to defend himself against both sets in turn, beginning with his defense against the first accusers. Socrates says his first accusers claim that he studies things he shouldn't be studying, which is the first point. The second point, twists wrong arguments so they sound right. And the third, teaches those things to other people. Yeah, whether this is actually something that bad or not, I shouldn't, I think, judge that, I guess. Not one of these says Socrates is true. Instead, these accusations stem from the fact that Socrates has upset a large number of ambitious and violent people and their followers by proving they aren't as wise as they believe or claim themselves to be. Why did he upset those people? Because Apollo's priestess at Delphi claimed no one was wiser than Socrates, which he couldn't believe. So he decided to question wise people to try and understand what she meant. The trouble? Those wise, quote-unquote, people couldn't answer his questions. The politicians were embarrassed. The poets couldn't explain their creations. The craftsmen mistook mastery at their craft for more general wisdom, which they didn't have. In fact, Socrates realized that the wiser that people were thought to be, the more foolish they usually were, and vice versa. He realized that what wisdom he had was in knowing he knew nothing, while others thought or claimed to know things they did not. And he realized that if he was the wisest man, then it was only by being the least ignorant of his own ignorance. The problem? Making influential people look foolish made Socrates deeply unpopular, and so slanders and lies began spreading. But here's the thing. If you ask anyone to point to a specific example of these first accusations, they can't do it. Why not? Because they simply aren't true. First, Socrates never claimed to know or study the things he's shown others ignorant of. Okay. The second, Socrates only ever shown that right arguments are often wrong. And third, while there are teachers out there, Socrates is not one of them. In fact, the young men who follow and imitate Socrates do so freely at no cost and of their own free will. It is in this defense against his first accusers that Socrates presents to the jury. It is for this reason, he says, that he ultimately stands accused by Meletus to answer for the anger of poets, Anytus to answer for the anger of the craftsmen and politicians, and third, Lycon to answer for the anger of the orators. And it is at this point that Socrates turns his attention to his defense against the second accusers. So Socrates says that his second accusers, the plaintiffs in a case, claim he deliberately corrupts the young and does not believe in the city's gods. Again, Socrates says neither is true. To begin his defense, Socrates makes Meletus and his accusations look foolish. First, he asks leading questions that end with Meletus claiming Socrates is the only man who corrupts the young men of the city, while all other Athenians improve them, which Socrates says is clearly nonsense. Second, he leads Meletus into admitting that wicked people harm those nearest to them and no one willingly seeks harm. Therefore, Socrates must either be an idiot for seeking harm willingly, which Socrates says no one will believe, or he corrupts those nearest to him unwillingly, which is not a matter for the court. Third, he leads Meletus into claiming that Socrates is an atheist who corrupts the young by teaching them new spiritual ideas. However, notes Socrates, a man who believes in spiritual ideas must believe in spirits, and spirits are gods or their children, and so Meletus' claims are incompatible. Socrates cannot possibly be an atheist and their spiritual ideas, which implies a belief in gods, and teach spiritual ideas, which implies a belief in gods, which just makes sense, I would say. These three arguments, Socrates says, are enough to prove, first, that Meletus' accusations are badly thought through, and the second thing, that Socrates cannot possibly be guilty of them. Note, the ruthless contempt of Socrates' delivery gives perhaps a better taste of why he was so unpopular with his contemporaries than the arguments themselves. But Socrates isn't done yet. The ruthless contempt of Socrates' delivery. I see. Which, I mean, if you think about it, it is not that of a smart idea. Being in front of in front of air. Yeah, I can't talk today, by the way. I don't know why, but yeah. Speaking, or delivering whatever you want to say in front of somebody that is important to you in some or the other way, and then delivering whatever you want to say in a bad way in terms of you maybe being aggressive and so on and so on and so on, is really not a good idea. And you should not be doing that, because it's gonna make everything sound way worse and maybe even wrong, and making you look like or feel like a liar and so on. Like, there's many reasons why the way you deliver something and say something, also including tonality and or especially tonality, does really matter. So, but Socrates isn't done yet. To finish his defense, Socrates vaunts himself as a dedicated public servant. Socrates is a gift from God. What the fuck? His fact-checking philosophy is a public service that stings Athens out of complacency. His examinations help all Athenians, regardless of wealth and status, achieve excellence individually, and thus as a group, by keeping them honest about what they do and don't know. His entire concern is for Athens. He does not work for himself, but for wisdom and the city. He lives in poverty and has never charged a fee for his work. He has avoided politics, since fighting for justice and being popular seldom go hand in hand. Like that time, he was the only one to fight for the lives of 10 generals illegally put to death by the council to appease public anger for their military failure. There is no chance of him changing his way. The mark of a hero of true excellence is to always do the right thing, regardless of the risk to one's self. And Socrates is determined to keep doing what is right, no matter the cost. Like that time, he refused to obey the 30 tyrants and conspire in the deaths of his fellow Athenians. And he's not afraid to face danger or death in the line of his duty. Socrates didn't abandon his commanders during the 3 military campaigns in which he defended Athens. And he won't abandon wisdom either by fearing death, since, for all we know, it could be a great blessing. Conclusion: if the jury convicts him, they had better be prepared to put him to death. But if he is guilty, then why have none of the men who have learned from him realized the error of their ways and condemned him? Why haven't their friends or relations stepped forward to the same? Let Meletus bring them forward now, if he can. Why would so many support someone so guilty unless Meletus is obviously lying? Socrates won't shame the city by telling sob stories, begging the jury for pity, as so many have before him. Instead, he exhorts them one last time to listen to the facts, not to pretty arguments or their emotions. He reminds them to award justice according to their oaths, or oaths, and the law. And with that, he rests his case. The punishment speech. After his defense speech, Socrates is voted guilty by a narrow 30 votes margin, and the trial moves on to sentencing. Note: under Athenian, I've always pronounced it the wrong way, I'm actually very sorry, law, every jury voted twice. First on the issue of guilt, second on the issue of punishment. Both the defendant and the plaintiffs put forward a suggested punishment, and the jury then voted between them. Socrates begins by saying that although he expected the guilty verdict, it's notable by how slim a margin it passed. Turning to punishment, he suggested what really deserves as a reward. For his hard work on behalf of the city are free state-sponsored meals. When that fails to find sympathy, he first notes that a trial involving a death sentence should run for multiple days instead of just one, to give him time to present proper arguments and avoid emotional decision-making. Next, he considers alternative punishments: prison, exile, silence, or a fine. He concludes that he is not prepared to give up his freedom. his citizenship, after all, who else would put up with him, or his philosophy, so see above. And while Socrates maintains that he doesn't deserve punishment at all, he grudgingly proposes a large fine of 3,000 drachmae to be guaranteed by his followers, including Plato, instead of the smaller 100 drachmae fine, which would be more appropriate to his impoverished estate. Note, the daily wage for a skilled day laborer was 1 drachma. In Xenophon's account of the Apology, Socrates refuses to offer an alternative to his suggestion of free meals. Final words. The jury votes for death, and Socrates shares a few last thoughts on the outcome. To the jurors who voted him guilty, Socrates remains unrepentant. First, he states by his integrity and decision, unlike the plaintiffs, not to betray his principles or pander to the jury. Second, he predicts that sentencing a wise old man to death is a Pyrrhic victory. Not only will it tarnish the city and Euro's reputations, it was also pointless. They have only slightly shortened a life that would have ended soon anyway, and with the seeds of philosophy planted, many will simply now rise where before there was none, or one. And finally, he concludes by advising that the secret to not failing tests of one's excellence lies not in avoiding or silencing those tests, but in the pursuit of excellence itself by preparing for those tests as best as you possibly can. To the jurors who voted to acquit him, Socrates makes 2 requests. First, he asks them not to worry, since death may in fact be a blessing. It's either like a long night of dreamless sleep, or it's a ticket to meet, test, and keeps company with many legendary inhabitants of the underworld. In either case, it is not something to be feared. Second, he asks them to look after the philosophical education of his sons when they have grown up, to give them the same training Socrates gave to them, to make sure they don't value money over excellence or think they are somebody when they are nobody. He bids them a final philosophical farewell. And now the hour to part is come, I go to die. What? Now the hour to part has come, I go to die, you go to live. Which of us goes to the better lot is known to no one except the god. And with that, the apology ends. And then there's some quotes. Yeah, there's some quotes. I'm actually very sorry for my poor reading skills today. I don't know why it's actually really, really difficult for me today, but it is what it is. So apology quotes. These apology quotes come from Quora, The Art of Living's growing central library of thoughts, anecdotes, notes, and quotes. To fear death, gentlemen, is no other than to think oneself wise when one is not. To think one knows what one does not know. No one knows whether death may not be the greatest of a blessing for a man, yet men fear it as if they knew that it is the greatest of evils. Socrates' apology. Wealth does not bring about excellence, but excellence makes wealth and everything else good for man, both individually and collectively. A man who really fights for justice must lead a private, not a public life, if he is to survive for even a short time. And the last one, now the hour to part has come, I go to die, you go to live. Which of us goes to the better lot? To the better lot is known to no one except the god. Wish there was a faster and or easier way. Whenever you're ready, here are 4 ways I can help you be more productive, find more balance, and live life more on purpose. Curious? Discover how productive you really are. Take this 3-minute and there's just some things. Once again, I'm very sorry for my poor reading today, but I'm gonna end the episode there, so I wish you the best from the bottom of my heart. I really fucking do. And I'm gonna see you the next time, I at least hope. In better shape and form, I hope and guess. And yeah, I'll see you.